Hello and hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Yeah, it's me again, Nushakina binti Hari Anwar. So what I'm gonna share with you all is what are the components of an organizational framework for security and control. So let's see what our today discussions together. So, our today discussions have 4 main points, which is first, information system controls, followed by risk assessment, security policy, disaster recovery planning, and business continuity planning. And the last one is the role auditing. So, let's go one by one. But before we go far, we must get to know first what is the organizational framework. The organizational framework is to provide a structure for integrated financial planning, project tracking, reporting, and monitoring of performance indicators. So, what are the components of an organizational framework for security and controls? So, let's see. Our first point is information system controls. Even with the best security tools, your information system won't be reliable and secure unless you know how and where to deploy them. You will need to know where your company is at risk and what control you must have in place to protect your information systems. In information system controls, they consist of general controls and applications controls. For general control is to govern the design, security, use of computer programs, and the security of data files in general throughout the organization's information technology infrastructure. In general controls, they have 6 types of general control. So first, software controls is to monitor the use of system software. Second, hardware controls is to ensure that computer hardware is physically secure. Third is computer operations control is to oversee the work of the computer department to ensure that program procedures are consistently and correctly. Fourth is data security controls is to ensure that valuable business data files maintained internally or by an external hosting service. Fifth is implementation controls is to audit the system development process at various points to ensure that the process is properly controlled and managed. The lastly is administrative controls is to formalize the standards, rules, procedures, and control disciplines to ensure that the organization's general and application control are properly executed and enforced. Next, application controls. Application controls are specific controls unique to each computerized application such as payroll or order processing. Application control can be classified as first, input control, second, processing controls, and third, output controls. So now, let's move on to our second point, which is risk assessment. Before your company commits resources to security and information systems controls, it must know which assets require to protections and the extent to which these assets are vulnerable. A risk assessment helps answer these questions and determine the most cost-effective set of controls for protecting assets. Risk assessment can determine the level of risk to the firm if a specific activity or process is not properly controlled. A risk assessment also can evaluate information assets, identify control points, and control weaknesses. So next, let's moving on to our third point, which is security policy. After we identify the main risk to our system, our company will need to develop a security policy for protecting the company's assets. A security policy consists of statements ranking information risk, identify acceptable security goals, and identify the mechanism for achieving these goals. An acceptable use policy, AUP, is to define acceptable use of the firm's information resources and computing equipment, including desktop and laptop computers, wireless devices, telephones, and the internet. A good AUP can define unacceptable and acceptable actions for every user and specifies consequences for non-compliance. Security policy also includes provisions for identity management. Identity management consists of businesses' processes and software tools for identifying the valid users of a system and controlling their access to system resources. It includes policy for identifying and authorizing different categories of system users. So now, let's moving on to our point number 4. Disaster recovery planning and business continuity planning. Actually, if you run a business, you need to plan for events such as a power outage, floods, earthquakes, or terrorist attacks that will prevent your information system and your business from operating. So, the disaster recovery planning is for devices planned to the restorations of disrupted computing and communication services. Disaster recovery plans more focus primarily on the technical issues involved in keeping system up and running, such as which files to backup and the maintenance of backup computer systems. While business continuity planning is more focused on how the company can restore business operations after a disaster strikes. The business continuity plans is to identify the critical business process and determines actions plans for handling mission critical functions if systems go down. So, the management must determine the maximum amount of time the business can survive with its system down and which parts of the business must be restored first. Finally, for the last point, is the role of auditing. In role of auditing, we must know how does management know that information system security and controls are effective. To answer these questions, organizations must conduct comprehensive and systematic audits. Information system audit is to examine the firm's overall security environment as well as controls governing individual information systems. The audit lists and ranks all control weaknesses and estimate the probability of their occurrence. So, the conclusion is the firms need to establish a good set of both general and application controls for their information system. Firms must also develop a coherent corporate security policy and plans for continuing business operations in the event of disaster or disruption. Comprehensive and systematic management information system auditing helps organizations determine the effectiveness of security and controls for their information system. So that's all from me, and if you think this video helps you, don't forget to give me subscribe and like. Thank you for watching. See you on the next video. Bye bye.